G'day everyone, welcome to another CSBP Fertilisers Market Update. I'm Johnston and joined this week by our supply chain managers, Mark Robinson and Jonathan Hams. Robbo, Hamsy, welcome.
Thanks, Gray.
Thank you, Gray.
It's all happening in the world of fertiliser. When we last caught up with Ben, things seemed reasonably tightly balanced across each of the main nutrient categories. Robbo, if we start with nitrogen, what's happening and how are things moving since we last caught up with Ben?
Okay, sure. So thinking about urea, there's probably three talking points, or countries I should say, China, India and Iran. So I'll start with India. They're having a really good monsoon season, consuming a lot of urea, and they are a net importer. So they've put these big tenders on the market for immediate shipment. So that has the effect of absorbing all the surplus short-term supply, and at the moment it's keeping prices buoyant, especially given China are not on the export market. So thinking about China, they are prioritising domestic requirements. And they are very powerful on the supply-demand. When they are exporting, they can contribute significant volumes and provide relief on that supply-demand balance. When they're not exporting, keeps upward pressure on prices. And then thirdly, Iran. So there's a significant threat if these tensions between Israel and Iran escalate. Think about Iran alone, they contribute maybe 5 million tonne per annum of production of export to the global urea market, which is about 10% of total global traded urea. Probably more importantly is their location. You have the Strait of Hormuz on the south side of Iran. If there happened to be escalation that caused a blockade or interruption to that trade, or interruption to that waterway, there's a bit over 30% of global traded urea that traverse that waterway. So that would have massive effects if that was interrupted. Okay,
so we've got strong demand from India, China not exporting, and potential impact in Iran, but yet to be determined. Those things all feel like they'll be having a sort of a reasonably positive impact on pricing. Is that what we're seeing?
Yeah, it's in the short term, it's India that's contributing that, keeping these prices buoyant. But in the back of everyone's mind is the looming risk if this escalation played out.
And Hamsy, is that flowing through to the UAN FlexiAN market as well?
Yeah, we've seen in recent weeks there been marginal, moderate increases on FlexiAN pricing, mainly in the US. This week we've seen larger increases in both Europe and the US, and in the US it's to the tune of 15 US increase in 1 week. And this is on the back of farmers in the US showing interest in buying, on the back of international instability in the Middle East, and its relative affordability versus urea compared to previous years.
And so that I guess leaves us with what can farmers in WA do? CSBP is still pretty well placed to supply that pre-fill FlexiAN market?
Yeah, absolutely. So plenty of FlexiAN for pre-fill for immediate collection. So we're in a good position there. And looking forward with those increased FOB prices, and we've seen freight prices increase in recent weeks as well. If we were purchasing for the in-season market, prices would be higher.
Yeah, okay. And so Robbo, then that kind of gives an indication if farmers are looking to secure their pre-fill supply or even take just a position on nitrogen ahead of the season, FlexiAN pre-fill is a good option. The same option isn't really available in urea?
So now, thinking about urea and the lead time, so it works on roughly 10 weeks from the moment you go out and inquiry to you have that product arriving. I think it was you come up with the saying the other day, when in season the lead time is too long, but out of season the lead time is too short. And the problem is we will be going out in probably January to start buying for a March arrival, and the March arrival is really to coincide with as phosphate dispatches ramp up, makes way for urea storage.
Yeah, and so if someone did want to take a urea position now, the only way we can maybe facilitate that is get it in and then out of our sheds before that real phosphate peak storage happens?
That's right. If you have the storage to take urea that January or December-January period, yeah, please speak to your AM.
And I guess another point there is, unlike in some markets like grain markets that our customers would be familiar with, there's no opportunity to really buy forward in a derivative market. You kind of have to take the physical product.
That's right. So unlike grain, the derivative market is very limited. So we have a very limited forward position. So basically when we commit to a cargo, you have to take physical delivery shortly thereafter.
So a really nice study of nitrogen there, and a lot's been happening since we last caught up with Ben. Turning to phosphates, and we're recording this in the morning of Friday the 11th of October, so the last couple of days everyone's been eagerly watching what's happening with Hurricane Milton as it's moved over Florida. We're not 100% sure around how that's played out yet.
Yeah, that's correct, Gray. So remembering where late September we had Hurricane Helene come through the southeast corner of the states, which affected phosphate production, and the Hurricane Milton hit the US overnight Wednesday US time. So the US are just going to bed Thursday night as we speak, and they're still assessing what's going on. And we're hearing they're out of power, they've got spotty cell mobile phone reception. So they're still assessing what the impacts are of Hurricane Milton. And it is we do source a portion of our phosphates from the US. So we're keeping in touch with our supply partners over there, wishing them all the best as the recovery happens, but we're watching and waiting to hear.
And has the sort of uncertainty around that flowed into the global markets this week?
Not as yet. But having said that, there's plenty going on in the phosphate market. Even with the lack of affordability, the market remains really tight. Mm-hmm. Pricing's been firm. From a demand point of view, India is still purchasing. They're still behind where they'd like to be with their imports. Through Africa, we're hearing Ethiopia's 1 million tonnes behind their import program. So demand is continuing to be strong. And for both the West Coast, ourselves, and the East Coast of Australia, the phosphate import programs are just commencing as well. Mm-hmm. So there is plenty of demand for phosphates.
And I guess we've also seen US dollar strengthening in the last couple of days, which flows through to phosphate import prices as well.
Absolutely, and we've seen it move up to near on 69, back to 67, so that's a watch as well, and that does have a big impact on what we pay. And from a supply perspective, obviously we're still watching what's happening with the phosphate producers in Florida. China's expected to export slightly less than last year for Q4 or the December quarter. So even though we've still got the affordability concerns, the market remains very, very, very tight.
Tightly balanced is the message. CSBP's position to be able to supply the market at the moment?
Yeah, well, our import program continues as it needs to because we've got time deadlines where we must import raw materials. So our first phosphate vessel has arrived. The granulation plant is up and running, making Agras and Agras Extra products. And I will put a plug in there for those growers that are assessing what they're going to do with their sulphur sources this year. Mm-hmm. Products like Agras really do fit that bill, and we'll be pricing more product in the coming weeks. So we do have a position to price phosphates to customers if they're ready to do so.
Very good. Finally, Robbo, potash, anything happening in the world of potash?
I guess in the recent months, producers have been hinting at possible price increases as we go in towards the end of the year. Perhaps hinting at supply is tighter than the market thinks. Starting to see indications of that. And similar to urea, you have India and China are the biggest markets for potash. The range that India agreed to some time ago, the actual potash deals are concluding at the high of that range and now starting to push slightly above. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some modest increases in potash as we go to the end of the year. Our imports will start loading soon, and at the moment we have plenty of K-Till, plenty of Macro Pro, MOP and SOP to available for contracting.
Great message, Robbo. What a lovely wrap up from NP&K. A lot happening in the market, but I think you guys have covered it really nicely, so thanks so much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Gray.
Cheers, Gray.
And thank you all out there in Fertiliser World. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
This podcast is provided as general information only. The content of this podcast is not a recommendation and has been prepared without taking your objectives or circumstances into account. Before acting on the content of this, you should consider its appropriateness to your circumstances and seek independent advice.